I could take weeks to answer this question, but I'll try and do it relatively shortly. Um, when we know about these, we can reduce human suffering dramatically. That would be the most basic answer I could give you. And we do run into these, especially people who deal with abused people and people who had severe addictions. They come up, they exist, they happen. And if we don't know about them, or if we pretend they're not there because they're ideologically inconvenient, um, we can't help those people. And I want to give an example that it's actually the case that got me devoted to this field. I did not want to, I did not want to become the unattached burden guy. I really didn't. And I was working as a PA, supervising a little triad, and this woman came in, and I didn't know much about them at the time, only the very basics. And she was working with one of the other people in the triad was her, her therapist. And she had this thing in her, which I realized, oh, this probably is not really part of her. It presented at first like a critic, but it was absolutely vicious and had no good intention. So I asked the gentleman, would it be okay if I took this session over? I don't think you've had any training in this stuff. And he said, please. Because if you don't know about these things, they're very intimidating and weird and, let me out of here. And this thing appeared in this woman's inner vision as a bloodshot eyeball. And then later, as we got to know it better, it also had legs. And it just kept telling her the nastiest stuff you can imagine. You're a miserable little yuck, and on and on and on and on. What's good about telling her this? What's good about criticizing her? And if it was a part, it would have said, well, then she'll be safe or something like that. But it just kept saying, I want to destroy her. I want to make her feel as small as possible. Nothing. So then ask it. The next thing you do is ask, is it a part? And I knew this much even back then. I said, just ask it, is it a part of you? And it dodged the question and it wouldn't answer. And I just kept saying very calmly, is it a part? And then at one point it said, that's a really stupid question. You're supposed to be a teacher. Don't you have anything smarter to ask? And I just sort of laughed and I said, well, it may be stupid, but it's simple. Are you a part of her? And finally it roared back, no, I'm not a part of her. She's a miserable little worm, and I'm going to crush you the same way I'm going to crush her. And yeah, this was not a part of her. And we were able, using very simple, basic techniques, to get this thing out of her. It tried to sneak back. We got it out again. It was gone. And I thought that was weird. And, I closed up the triad, debriefed people appropriately. And then I went into the staff meeting and my core body temperature dropped like 3-4 degrees. And I couldn't get warm and I was shaking even with blankets. And people started teasing me, calling me the Ghostbuster. And I got really irritated. And that night I thought, I'm just going to forget about this. This was ridiculous. This is just some oddball thing I'm going to ignore, because my whole life had been around trauma therapy. And then I started getting emails from this woman from the airport. And she said, oh, I'm seeing colors like I've never seen before. And I'm thinking, oh, did I trigger a manic episode? And then she's saying, oh, I can see the divine in people. And now I'm thinking, oh my God, what did I do? It's like visions of malpractice dancing in my head for trying this weird stuff. And then she said something that changed my life. She said, when I was a teenager, and when I met her, this woman was 50-ish, I was institutionalized many times. And I didn't tell you this, but I tried to commit suicide many times. Back then, when I tried to tell anyone about the non-human inside of me, they gave me electroshock and drugs. You're the first person to ever believe me, and you have changed my life. And I went, I'd like to ignore this, but now I can't. And I've followed this woman for 10 years, more than 10 years now, and she still says that that one event was a life-changing experience, and the external by external criteria, her life is flowered. She now has terminal cancer and is dying, sadly. But, I thought, this is very inconvenient. I'd rather just sort of settle into the sunset being a trauma therapist. It's easy, it's accepted now. But when she said that, it was no. People are being given electroshock I didn't have any skill basically back then, just the most basic stuff. And just the recognition that people can have things in their minds that are not part of their system that changed this woman's life. And I wasn't going to ignore it.